We love technical issues. We love it when the tech doesn't work for us. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Technical Trouble and Problem Solving 101 or 407 in this case. Sometimes the tech works, sometimes it doesn't work out so well. But hey, you know what? It's a storyboarding playlist kind of day. And so that's what we're talking about for the next 3 hours. Welcome to Thursday. It's a storyboarding playlist on TLD Cast. Training, learning, and development broadcast. Coming to you live every single day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. UK time. And every once in a while, actually, it's not every once in a while, it's every month, playlist. And a playlist is an extended with multiple speakers, presenters talking about one very specific topic. And we just do a deep dive on that topic for an extended period of time. We used to do this for 4 hours. Now we've dropped it down to 3 hours because, wow, 4 hours is just a long time to sit in the hot seat and, and talk about one topic. So I think 3 hours is going to be just fine. And it makes it even more fun for me. And I know for all of you that are hanging out with us when we have awesome guests like our starter today, kicking things off for the storyboarding playlist. Ladies and gentlemen, in the yellow corner, Miss Kristen Hayden-Safdie. Good to see you.
Hello, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for being our opening starter. I apologize for starting late, though.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm the East Coast one of the group, so it's fitting that I start out because it's a really good time for me.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, good deal. Hey, so I didn't even forget to ask you, we were dealing with all the tech stuff in the green room and whatnot, but do you have slides or anything you want to present today or visuals?
I have a screen. So I'm just going to share my screen and you can see it in all its glory. I think I muted my Slack notifications, so.
Yeah, that's all right. So while you're doing your screen sharing and getting all that set up, maybe you can also tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Yes, so I am Kristen Hayden-Safdie. I'm a consultant at a company called Motif. I do a little bit of everything like every L&D person. Some instructional design, some videos, some game development, and to that end, I have a pretty loosey-goosey storyboarding structure that is, it used to be a whiteboard full of stickies that I would try to make sure no one touched throughout the duration of the project that had all of my learning objectives, and then I'd map them to everything else. And then I discovered online whiteboards, and it made life much easier. So I'm gonna show a little bit of how I use those for different ends.
Cool.
Yeah. So let me share this. I'm gonna do my entire screen because I trust and like you guys. So, okay. Ooh.
Oh yeah, we love that special effect. That's our favorite.
Lovely. Okay. Let me see if this helps. Did that do anything?
Just go full screen on it.
Okay.
On the thing you want to show.
Okay.
There you go.
Does that work?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I just have to stop going back to the screen.
Yeah. Just don't. Yeah. You don't have to. You can't see me anymore, and that's okay. You're going to be just looking at your screen and talking us through it. But you can still hear me, I hope, right?
I can.
Perfect.
So the whiteboarding app that I use that I think I've talked to some people about is called Mural. Mural has a free 30-day trial, but then it's a paid app. So as I do this, know that there are some alternatives like Ryboard. Let me grab my notes. Awe is another one. There's also, if you have Google Suite, Jamboard is now available to you, which is a really good alternative. So any type of online whiteboarding app where you can make notes, a lot of them have this sticky note function, you can do this type of thing. The keys for me are being able to create sticky notes, because then you can do this and move it around. And being able to share a link with someone on the spot without them having to make an account. So this first example, I'm going to take you through a whole storyboarding a kind of a strategy, a curriculum strategy from start to finish. But first I wanted to give one use case, which is, I've made this generic, but I was on the phone with a SME doing a recording of content. I had content that I had sent them over and I needed them to talk about it as they would in a classroom. The point was to give a little bit of that classroom feel, that personal touch in an online course. So I was talking to the subject matter expert and trying to, as he was talking, of course, visualize what the video is going to look like. And as I was doing that, I thought, this needs to be a chart. This needs to be an infographic that someone can download. And then I zoom into the parts of the chart while the video is playing. That should be what the video is. But that wasn't how he'd structured it, of course. So instead, I pulled this up and I made this quick and dirty chart. And I asked him to help me fill out the examples. These are kind of the objects we were talking about. And then these were traits of the objects. So I sent him a link to this. He was able to hop on, and it took, a minute of explaining before he was adding stickies and moving them around and really getting into the process. And then during the same span of, I only had half an hour with him. During the same span of the call, we were able to put this together and then re-record in a way that fit this loosely defined storyboard. So my hope with this is to give, as people are making, as I've made long Word document storyboards that are 50 pages or 50 slides. I use PowerPoint a lot for mine. A way to do it that is quick and collaborative, and you can do over the phone or online, or just look at it as more of a brainstorming tool plus storyboarding. Does that make sense or work?
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's very hard to not see the chat.
Oh yeah. Well, you can switch back now if you want to. You could just like close the screen sharing, and then it won't do the epic craziness. Oh, actually, you know what you could do is just, here, I'll do this. Oh, well, that won't help for you. I was going to minimize it, or unfocus it. Maybe that will help. Does that help? No, that doesn't help you any. No. So now you should be able to switch back and it won't be so crazy. Oh, except now I think your screen froze. Oh, I lost you. Okay, so right now what we need to do is talk about a definition for storyboarding. And thank you, Luis, for dropping in a definition from the amazing Connie Malamed. Malamed? I always forget how she pronounces that. Dang it. But yeah, excellent link. I'm going to fire that up and I'm going to drop it in on my shared screen. I'm going to go full screen. For those of you that have not clicked that link yet, let's talk about storyboarding basics and just what is a storyboard first of all. This is Connie Malamed's website, the e-learning coach. For those of you who do not know who she is, you should definitely get to know her. And you can start by checking out her website. And this particular post is perfect for our playlist today. So you can definitely check this out. I'm not exactly sure what happened to Kristen, but I'm going to re-invite her. Kristen, do you need me to oh, you're back. Okay. And I think I need to re-invite you. So I'm going to remove you and then I'm going to re-invite you. There we go.
Sorry about that. I thought you were just being very quiet.
It's like, what happened to him? Where did he go? too. He went crazy. But everybody, during our little reprieve there, everybody was reminding me that we hadn't quite defined storyboarding and that maybe we should start from the beginning and do a little bit of a definition of what storyboarding is. And so Luis pointed out Connie Malamed's website, so I'm just sharing it with everybody right now. But in this particular question and answer, it looks like is how she created this blog post. Her first question is, what is an e-learning storyboard? She says, generally a storyboard for e-learning is a document that specifies the visual elements, text elements, audio elements, interactions, and branching, where the system or user will go next, of every screen in an online course. Many people also add the learning objectives to the storyboard. How does that sound?
That is perfect. And I'm actually going a little bit crazy with this. And I start it with analysis usually. I try to center my storyboards all the time with the learning objectives right there so that I can tie it. Everything I do, I try to fit under a learning objective.
Okay.
So I'll show an example of that, but I try to make the first thing I do in the storyboard kind of last through the whole time. So I don't know where you guys lost me.
We were just about to minimize it, and you were going to look at the chat, and I was trying to, and maybe you lost me before that even. So it was kind of perfect timing, but except for the fact that we lost you. So,
well, that's perfect for some, I'm sure.
I'm going to put your screen back up if you want, or we can just keep talking about storyboarding.
I am, and I'm going to pull it up on my phone. I think it was Alan who had that idea. It was a very good one. But it's okay. If you can just read the chat to me if anything very useful comes up. Just interrupt me.
I will.
Do it. I'm going to try to just do the application window and see if that makes it any better. Nope. Okay. So let's go back to my mail. So that was an example of a storyboard where I had, oops, that's not the one I wanted. And you can, as you can see, do a lot of things. That was one where I had on the fly made this very quick and dirty thing, and I couldn't make the whole end result generic. But basically, I sent this to my graphic.
Can you? We still see your crowdcast. Can you show the other tab?
Yes.
Or the other?
Might have to unshare.
Yeah, you have. If you already shared the application and you want to share your screen, yeah, you got to unshare and then reshare.
Sorry, guys. Stop sharing. Okay. So I guess I do have to do entire screen, which is fine by me. Okay. So can you guys see it now?
There we go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Now we're back to the yellow sticky page.
Not move away from this.
Okay.
So basically, I sent this over to the graphic designer. It was a little bit more useful in the notes here, but not by much. And that way, he created an infographic that we can make available with the video as a downloadable resource. And then the graphics I could pull for the video itself. So just from this and a little bit of explanation, it was enough of a storyboard to get going, which for rapid development, I think is a win. But say I'm doing an entire curriculum. I'm doing, I used an example of something that we need to do anyway. So I figured I'd use that as a starting point. And Sandra is on the call. Sandra is going to be part of this. But this is an internal Scrum Master training. So at my company, we use Agile for a lot of our internal work. Just, if we have something we need to do, we usually wrap it into a sprint. So most people on staff need to be able to serve as a Scrum Master at a moment's notice. There are people who are already really good at it and some people who are new to it. So we need some sort of training available for them. Do I still have you?
Yep, I'm still here.
So first thing I do with this, and this used to obviously be on a physical whiteboard, is
Okay.
I put what I wanted people to be able to do, which is facilitate an agile sprint. That's it. That's my goal. And then I broke that down into some other enabling objectives. So they need to be able to set the goals and expectations, facilitate a stand-up, remove blockers, report burn down and velocity, facilitate an AAR. And that's basically all we need them to be able to do.
Awesome.
Then what I did was I broke that down more myself. You could also, I would ask a SME to do the same thing somewhere else. I also asked the people who do the task. So Sandra, some of these are hers. I sent them a link to this and I said, add your thoughts here. So if you go to, and actually, I'm going to see if I can, I want to share this, but I also don't want to screw everything up.
Oh, it's okay. Just go for it.
Okay. We're going to try. Okay. So you guys can get on there. I'm going to go back to my, okay. Did that work?
I'm clicking into Mural right now. And this will be fun because I can actually share my screen at the same time that you're sharing your screen. So we can get really funky with the screen sharing.
We're getting meta with Crowdcast today and clearly testing its limits.
And we are definitely pushing its limits. Okay, so you've got yours over there. I'm on the other side there. And so what do I need to do now?
So everyone is now, not everyone, a lot of people are now in it.
Okay. So I enter anonymously? Is that what I do?
On the bottom here, we have a bunch of anonymous users. Anonymous users always come in as animals. So someone is a bee, someone is a lobster.
I'm the snail.
Perfect. So that's
just wondering.
Someone's a pig. So I sent this link to the people who actually do the task. And I asked them to put in questions or examples they have. Just stuff, I described it to them as things that vex you about this process. Things that you've always wondered, things that you have trouble with, just whatever you have. Separately, I did my own task breakdown, and that's the one over here. So once I had all of those, and you can do this with, I would add another one for observations. If we have time, we can do a little journey mapping exercise like that. But you
this is very cool, by the way.
can do as many of these as you want. Then I organized it. So I took, I color-coded each task, each of the major objectives. And I put the questions with the tasks that I had identified. So here, you can see I'd identified that they need to determine what the solution owner needs. That's the person who is, who the sprint is serving. I have something that I want done, so I'm a solution owner and a sprint team is working to get that done for me. Someone who does the task had said that sometimes the role is unclear. So I grouped these together. So whenever I talk about my objective that I created, I also remember that this is a specific problem that someone had regarding that. So I'm not just looking at my objective, but I have this add-on of a specific, user story.
Gotcha. Okay, so I am now on the same visual as you are now, I think. Yes.
Probably, and I can also.
Okay.
I can. How do I make someone follow me?
So I was just trying to get myself oriented there a little bit. So.
I can make everyone follow me or go to where I am, but I'm not going to do it. But
that makes this even cooler.
So this is how I organized it. It's still a little bit of a mess, but I took my initial whiteboard stickies and I could copy them into different places. So I have a history now of where they were and where they're going. And that to me is really valuable because I can go back a step and say, wait, why am I doing this learning objective in this section? What am I doing here? I also, this little section down here with the 2 blue notes, those are ones that I took out. And I put this little icon there. And that is my secret symbol that says this is a process issue that we need to figure out on our end before we can train on it. So the questions were, how can you add 2 people to a task? In the system, you can't right now. So I didn't want to lose them as questions people had, but I also couldn't deal with it in this rapidly developed training.
Gotcha.
So are there any chat questions on this before I move to the next step?
And now it looks like, let's see. Well, Lisa says, this is gorgeous to my left and right brain. Katie says, I missed something. How did people start turning into animals? So Craig shared the link to the app, so she should be getting in shortly. Let's see. Helena says, wow, I really want to know more about Scrum Master training. And Molly is the ladybug. Let's see what I'm going to scroll up and see if I missed anything else. Adrienne missed the software as well. You should be able to see the link in there, Adrienne. It's the app.mural.co that we've jumped into. And Kim asked early on, just for a little bit of clarification. So that first example that you showed, so it was a storyboard for a video and an infographic, not e-learning. She was just looking for some clarification there.
That was specifically a video to go in an e-learning course. And it was off the cuff. I wasn't planning on doing it. And I was on a call that it did end up being an hour. It was scheduled for half an hour. So I didn't want to hang up and storyboard something out to show him and then try to schedule another call. So I needed to get it as quickly as humanly possible. So this was the method of getting my thoughts organized enough that he could help me fill in the subject matter and then create that output.
Yeah, I mean, this is super cool. So have you just used it for this one project, or have you used it for other projects now, multiple projects?
I use this constantly.
So let's figure out, so there's so many different apps and tools and things you can use out there. And I think for me, deciding on which tool to use has 2 components. One, which of the tools that out there work for me, right? And which it works the way my brain works and the way I think about things, but then also thinking about the people I'm working with and the particular project I'm doing, what type of tools they have a comfort level with. Because if you have to spend too much time with a client, for example, even if it's an internal client, for those of you that work inside of corporations, if you have to spend too much time training them on the tools that are just a means to an end, then sometimes it's not worth jumping in, I've found. But this seems pretty easy. And so those are the 2 factors I look at, because one could argue, why don't you use like Microsoft Project, right? Or just a Google Doc, right? You can get multiple people in a Google Doc editing, or if you use Confluence inside of your organization, why not use that? All of these different tools that are out there. So tell us a little bit more about why this one works for you.
This one works for us. So I work, like I said, for a company called Motif, and it's mostly remote. We have a couple of stations where a couple of people work, but the goal is to make the experience the same for remote employees as it is for employees who are on site. So we also do a lot with design thinking. Everything we do is rooted in human-centered design. I know a lot of you hear me harp on that a lot. Which requires a lot of whiteboards and sticky notes. So we sometimes we would have meetings where we try to point the camera to a whiteboard and get it so that people could read the sticky notes. And then finally we discovered this, and it has been added to our tech stack. Our official tech stack is G Suite, Zoom, Mural, Jira, and those are really the core. Oh, Slack, and those are the core components. And this is, like, for me, one of the critical parts.
Nice. Okay.
Also been beneficial internally with the company, but I've really glommed onto it as a solution for my regular working style, which is very much like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always loved the idea and the concept behind when you go into a meeting, right, and you're doing brainstorming or whatever, and tossing out a bunch of sticky notepads to everybody, give them a job and say, write down all the tasks you can possibly think of to get through this project. And then you're putting them up on the walls, and then everybody goes around and they move them. No, this one's dependent upon this, and to be able to do that. And it's great when you have everybody in the same room, right? But as soon as you work virtually with anybody, then to your point, you're trying to point the webcam or whatever that's mounted on the wall or on the TV. You're trying to use the electronic things and figure out how to point it at the right wall that somebody's talking about if you're using all the walls. And it can just get crazy. So I can see where this would be much, much more useful, especially if you plan out projects and do this sort of design thinking process, brainstorming, whatever you want to call it, live, with a group of people anywhere in this kind of sticky note format where you can just jot everything down, but then move it. You don't have to like delete, write it, move it, copy, paste, whatever. Just being able to drag the different items around. I think that's what makes this kind of sticky note board app super helpful.
It's the dragging and it's the copying and pasting. So actually, I'll show you the next section. And this has an outline. That's the thing that Mural has that I don't know if you can really find in other ones. But if you go to the next one, I copied everything over. And then I was thinking about different ways that would be best to present each thing. So I copied all of the sticky notes over, and then I created these boxes. So some things like capturing participant notes during an AAR, following up with Slackers, reprioritizing user stories. A lot of those you really need to shadow someone who's more experienced at doing this. You can also, though, talk in a training event about reprioritizing or escalating problems. So I could copy things I could put it in shadowing and also put it in training event. I also put that one in a scenario case study. So these are templates. Developing user stories, there's a template you can use to at least get started with that, to try to work through it. Asking the 3 questions in an after action review, the what went well, what didn't, and what can we do better next time. That is a template. That can be a template that you give people. So I put all of the objectives in a box of the best way for me to present that information.
Okay.
Stuff is a recorded screencast. It's also going to be in the training event. Some things are scenario case study that you get 1 or 2 weeks after the initial training event. Some things are pointed out when you're shadowing someone. The person who's the experienced Scrum Master will know to point these things out as they do them, because they're things that someone who's learning needs to be aware of and see in action. So these are all, not all, but a lot of them are duplicated. So that ability to copy and paste is huge for me. Because
and I like how you can also put, it looks like you've got a screenshot in there or something, the thing I've selected on right here in the recorded screencast, thing?
So that's actually over, I think that was over here in that was over there. One thing about how easy this is, I've noticed people accidentally moving things around, which happens, and people immediately figured out how to put them back, which is impressive to me.
Wow.
Like, we have a lot of people in here, and this board hasn't been destroyed, and that's amazing.
That's very cool. So as we're going through and as we're talking about it, I'm a little slow on the uptick on some of these things while we're trying to go through and figure this out. So I'm looking over at the legend, and as you were going through the template, I was trying to think to myself, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by the template box, and then what, like, summarize results for team and develop user stories, the yellow one and the orange one. And then I saw the legend. So the yellow stickies then these are all elements that you need to set goals and expectations for a sprint. Is that it?
Yes. So I didn't want to lose in this moving around. That developing a user story is part of the overarching objective of setting goals and expectations for a sprint. And that's something that I try to be cognizant of what things should remain together, like grouping the objectives that I came up with the user experience types of Post-its. You can see I changed the colors a little bit, but they're similar. And then they're all color-coded to the objectives.
Yeah, I love that. So like the track tasks. So that just is saying and since you've got a blue one in the template area, so there'll be a template to track tasks for report, burn down, and velocity.
Yeah. And a big part of this is that when you're doing a training event or an IoT course, pretty much everything's going to be in the course. Some things will also have a handout. But when you're putting together an instructional strategy like this, or this is really helpful in things like game development, you have all of these objectives you want to hit, and they need to be incorporated in different ways. So they're not all going to stay together in a pretty pile. If you storyboard in PowerPoint, it gets really confusing because you have things in one section that are handled by one mechanic, but you have things somewhere else that's handled by something else. So this method of keeping things on these discrete stickies or whatever you do, it helps you separate them and move them around into what works best for them, for that information or that skill to get into the learner. But it also allows you to keep yourself honest. So I can go back through here and I can make sure that all of these things are accounted for. And because all of these are tied to my initial objectives, I'm keeping that analysis going throughout the entire development process.
Gotcha.
And
okay. So then what happens next as you go through this? So
I have in the recorded screencast, this is a nod to the development storyboard, just because it's useful to show that traditional storyboard. Here's my sprint report storyboard. This is not how I would name it in a file structure, but
okay. So you're using slides then within Google Docs as a storyboarding tool.
Exactly. So this is the traditional. This video will start out here. I put down any narration or points to cover, and then what to do next down in this down in the notes section. That way you can print it easily. You can see the visuals full screen, so someone can look at it and say, "Oh, make sure that you hide your bookmarks bar," or make sure that you don't use this one because it's not the right one. You get that check on the visuals, which when you're doing a video, that's the thing that really messes you up if something's slightly off.
So in essence, we've gone very meta on everybody here this morning, right off the bat, where we are storyboarding the process of storyboarding, storyboarding the analysis and the project of creating training, and included within all of that is the storyboarding, the traditional storyboarding of the screens of the video or whatever the final learning or instructional digital artifact is, but it's all part of it, which I love. I just want to make sure everybody's clear, make sure we haven't lost anybody, because I think we went really meta really fast, and so I just want to make sure everybody we're all on the same page here, and you guys get where Kristen is going with this. Uh,
I thought that I was first. I thought, oh, is what I'm doing even storyboarding? I asked for this playlist and then I immediately.
No, this is great. This is so cool. I mean, I love it, and it's a very cool idea. I just needed to wrap my head around it a little bit and get like dialed in into what you were talking about here. But I think I get it. I think I'm locked in now into what you're talking about, and it's brilliant. It's a great way to storyboard that process around getting to the point of needing to build a storyboard for the content, in essence.
And the reason that's so important to me is that I am the type of person who 40 minutes in, someone says, okay, I think I figured out what you're doing here. And that's why I do all of this. But when you're talking about, I talked on here a lot about the game that I developed. And I kept, and that one, it was a Google spreadsheet of all of the objectives that we needed to hit. And I would go back whenever we changed a mechanic in the game, I would go back and make sure that we hadn't lost an objective. And I needed to push back pretty often because we would change a mechanic and then I'd say, nope, we don't have this specific objective covered in this game anymore. So now we need to figure out a replacement mechanic in order to get that back in. And having a storyboard that starts with just your basic learning objectives and keeping them, there's a reason they are in every single screen. I copy them over every time I do anything because you need to just always center yourself around them. Otherwise you get off on these tangents.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Again, like I said, I think this is beautiful. There's a great question in here. Helena drops in Adobe XD. I was watching Melissa Milloway the other day talk about Adobe XD as well, and that she uses that when she's designing her interfaces and whatnot. And I think that's originally what it was intended for, but I'd never thought about using it as a storyboarding tool. But when I think about actually what it is, you could absolutely use it as a storyboarding tool, I think. So that's a great add in there, Helena. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that Mel does use it as a storyboarding tool. And I haven't used XD. I haven't done anything too recently where I had to design an interface. So I haven't played around with it much. But I know that's a great one. You can even, I've storyboarded things in Storyline itself because you can get all the branching. You just basically use it like PowerPoint. But you can get the branching in there. My husband actually, who I think people know also does e-learning development, they use Twine. And they just storyboard in Twine. It's not visual. I mean, the branching is, but that's how they do everything because they like that text-based, simple interface.
I was just going to say, I think it was Helena that, or who was it that originally, or maybe just talked to us about using Twine. Somebody else talked to us about, it was Myra. That's right. Yeah. Using Twine to do the storytelling stuff and whatnot. Yeah.
It's my goal with this, and I think my biggest takeaways for people is just storyboard where you are. You don't need, sometimes there's value in having a big, long storyboarding template and app, but you want to do it where you are, and you don't necessarily need to make it a thing.
Yeah, well, it doesn't, and that's a great point, and I think it's a great takeaway for everybody. Is that I'm guilty of this. Every time I know I need to do something, one of my favorite ways to procrastinate is to come up and look and search for the best tool to do the thing that I'm thinking about that I need to do, and then I get more excited about finding the perfect tool to do it than actually doing it, and it becomes a real issue. So yeah, so. That's why I also tell people, use what you've got, try not to, you've got something, even if all you have is a legal pad or a notepad sitting next to you and a pen, storyboard on that. Sketch your ideas out. Don't let the tech get in the way. And I say that as a tip to everybody only because I'm the worst at letting the tech get in the way. I do it all the time, and it is a curse. But
actually, so I
do.
showed in here that I linked to a more traditional storyboard. I also in here I just put the bare bones of a branching scenario in here.
Oh, cool.
And then I put another ask for the people who actually do the work to add blockers they've faced, so that I can use them and change my storyboard to actually incorporate their experience. Instead of sitting here and trying to come up with a perfect example of a blocker, I'm just going to send this link to people, ask them to put in what they've done, and then use that.
And jump in there. Oh, this is great. So I'm going to actually use this for a project. Is there a free version, or do you have to buy it right out the chute?
There's a 30-day trial, but I'm going to make a board that everyone can kind of play around with. And so
everybody can just go be an anonymous animal.
Yeah, you can edit.
Play your board. No, I'm serious. I really want to use this for a project that I'm currently working on, because I love how quick and easy it is. I love even the roughness of the lines to connect things. You can just quickly draw it out, and just how fast it is to visually represent what it is that you're thinking, and then allowing other people to go in and add to it. I think that's the real power of it. How many people have you had in at one time?
This might be the most I've ever had. Actually, there are 18 people in it right now, which is pretty good, and it's not affecting it.
Yeah, not at all. Mine's working just fine.
And all 18 of those people have editing privileges. And you can see they've moved stuff around and then fixed it.
And they have. They've taken advantage of that. This is super cool.
There's a quick thing that, and then if I have a minute, I also want to show Trello, because I wanted to use another tool that I know is free and people have on hand. A lot of people do.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, let's jump in and do that before we hit the top of the hour.
The last thing I wanted to show is that there's a secret trick that's very useful, where you can click on something and right click and show info, and you see who created that sticky note. So if I have users go in and add their own stickies, I know who added that, so I can go back and ask them for clarification on it.
Right.
So that's the last thing that I love.
The show info. Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool.
Many things about it, but okay. So let me switch over to Trello real fast, because I think it was this screen where I had organized it by template. Mm-hmm. And I think probably I'm going to make a bold assumption that most people in the chat are familiar with Trello, even if they haven't really used it.
I would say so. Is there anybody in the chat that wants to jump in and say, no, you do not know what Trello is? Because I'm assuming everybody knows. Oh, Adrienne's never heard of it. Or are you being tongue-in-cheek, Adrienne?
I work for a startup, so that's why I've heard of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, you got to learn about new things somewhere. So,
Yeah, and you can get a lot of Trello. I used only free things for this one. I think I lost my paid account anyway. So I used just the free things. So this is a Trello board, and Trello is typically used for project management, which I'm kind of doing here, but it has a lot of features and abilities that make it really good for this kind of thing. So I could here I have each of the topics, each of my objectives as the top line constant reminders. And then I added each of my enabling objectives below. I color-coded them because I needed something pretty. And that way I can also move them around if I need to. If I decide develop user stories is kind of over here and remove blockers, I can move it. But I added custom fields to this, and that's, you get one power up, which is one fancy API add-on. in a free account with Trello. So I usually pick custom fields unless I really need something else. Custom fields is amazing. So I added a bunch of checkboxes. So here, this one I decided should be a template. It's going to have ongoing availability. I wanted what it's going to be and the time that it's going to be delivered to the learner or whoever's the upcoming Scrum Master. That way I can say this one is going to be a training event and a shadowing activity that's going to happen during initial training and 2 weeks afterwards. So I put everything in that way. I can also upload a traditional storyboard to it. You can attach files. You can add due dates if you want. That's the project management to it. But you can label, you can attach things, and you can create custom fields, and that's all I needed for this. So what I can do with this is filter it. So I only want to see, I'm actually gonna just filter by search term. So I only want to see the things that are related to shadowing. So if I filter that, I see what I need to send to the people who are, the experts who people are shadowing. These are the things that I need to make sure that they're aware of. And if I do the same thing with plus 2 weeks, these are the things that people should be reminded of about 2 weeks afterwards. So again, this is kind of a way to storyboard the whole strategy rather than a specific thing, but can also be used when you're storyboarding more. I kind of look at it as storyboarding experiences rather than the specific deliverable, because that's where you really need this type of flexibility.
Yep.
So this is a similar thing with Trello. Trello, you can add cards, you can move them around, you can do whatever you want, but that's a tool that I would also encourage people to use, because I can say here, what am I missing, and send this link to users and ask them to just add cards. And I don't necessarily.
So that answers one of our questions. So how Helena asks a question in the Q&A. She says, I'm curious how to go over the review process for those outside of the organization. And that kind of answers that, right? If you're getting feedback, getting people to review things, if you're using Trello, I mean, obviously there's 100 different ways you could probably go through the review process and whatnot, but this is one interesting way of doing that review with your outside stakeholders, right?
Yes, and this is always available to them. One thing that I think is frustrating for SMEs and for the practitioners is you see maybe the course at the very beginning, and then someone takes it away and does their development, and then they bring it back, and probably other things have changed in the meantime. So you have to figure out what's going on. So this is always available. They can always look, and they can say, what are they seeing with identify necessary resources? And then if I'm a SME and I have a lot of opinions on how to set up a mural board for the after action review, because of course we use Mural for that, I can also find out what the 3 questions are they ask during every stand-up. It provides a lot of visibility that you wouldn't necessarily have in just a file folder that your SMEs may or may not be able to access. You can also make these private. So your individual company security is going to have their own thoughts, but you might be able to use this and attach files. Yeah. If you can't, just the vague instructions and in the description, the file location on the actual server of where the file is will give that visibility.
Very cool. Very, very, very cool. I love this. And we're getting close to the top of the hour. And I keep forgetting that when we're doing these playlists, I like to end a little bit early to give everybody a chance to take a bio break and get something to drink. So let's wrap up this session. But you guys don't go anywhere, because we're going to jump right back in with session 2 with Miss Katie Stroud, who's going to be joining us. But go ahead and take a couple minutes, everybody, but then come right back and jump into the session 2, which will be starting at the top of the hour if we don't have too many technical issues along the way. We should be just fine. So, Kristen, thank you so much for sharing that with us. You're awesome. I appreciate you.
Thank you, and I'll be here in case technical issues need me.
If there's other questions, if the technical issues continue, I'm going to invite you back in and we'll just continue our conversation.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Awesome. Thanks for sticking around too. I'm going to close you out for now, but if you see another invite, it just means I need you back.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Hey, go get a snack. Go take care of business. Check your email. Do whatever you need to do, but don't forget, come right on back. And we'll be here for session 2. Yeah, do I play music between sessions or do we just close out? We'll just play just music.